Hi, my name is Cheryl Ball, and I want to thank you all for coming today. I really appreciate your time, and I know everyone has a busy schedule, and I really appreciate how you've come out to help me out. Today I want to talk to you about child sponsorship. And we have all heard the stories about, maybe from our parents when they were young, how many miles they had to walk to go to school, and in the knee-deep snow, and somehow it was uphill both ways. But that's pretty funny sometimes, and there's probably a grain of truth to that. But what isn't funny is how far some children have to walk just to get water. And according to worldhunger.org, there's 925 million people that are undernourished. World Vision is one organization that has been addressing this problem since 1950 and is now one of the world's leading humanitarian organizations. So I'm going to share with you a little bit how great the need is. According to worldhunger.org, poor nutrition plays a role in at least half of the 10.9 million child deaths every year. Poor nutrition causes people to suffer on average of 160 days of illness every year. It also magnifies the effect of other diseases because when you don't have enough nutrition, your immune system is low, and that you can't fight off these other diseases, so it gets more severe. And there's many reasons for this. One of the reasons is drought, as much of the world is in a severe drought, or other weather-related factors. Another factor would be conflict. Some people live in a war zone, or they have to flee their homes and live in refugee camps. Also, food prices are rising. And the main reason, though, really is sad. It's political, that corrupt governments use food as a weapon against their own people to control them. The need for water is great, too. According to cleanwaterfortheworld.org, every 15 seconds, a child dies from a water-related disease. Contaminated water claims more lives through disease than any wars. Millions of women and children, because guess whose job it is to go fetch the water, spend hours every day collecting water from long distances and from often contaminated sources. Half of the world's hospital beds are filled with people who have water-related diseases. Richard Stearns, who is the president of World Vision right now, he left his job as a CEO of a prestigious company, and he is the president of World Vision. He wrote this book called The Hole in Our Gospel, and the concept of it is that he's challenging Christians to try and be more conscious of helping the poor and being more aware of the needs of the poor. And he explains in this book that much of the world lives in squalor because of poverty and disease. And he has spent some time, of course, visiting other countries and places where there's a high orphan rate because of the AIDS crisis. And he says that these children live with no adults around, in shacks with no water, no electricity, and in many cases no beds to sleep on. And he says the need for proper housing is dire. A need for education is great as well, and according to World Vision on their website, they state that 1 out of 5 adults are illiterate. So how are they supposed to better themselves if they can't get an education or become literate? But the good news is we can make a difference. And one of the ways we can make a difference is through sponsoring a child. What child sponsorship is it is a commitment to send $35 a month to World Vision. And on their website you can choose a child, or we chose this girl. Her name is Edith, and she is from Zambia. We were at an event where they had, World Vision had a booth, and they had rows and rows of cards of children that you could choose from. And she was 9 here when we started sponsoring her, and she is now 15. And what's neat about it is that $35 goes a long way in these poor countries. So it not only helps her, but it helps her family as well. And then World Vision sets up oftentimes other areas of ministry in the community. And we get an annual report each year to tell how she's doing. And it has a current picture of her, and she draws us a picture. And then a worker will fill out the particulars about her to let us know how she's doing. And then there's more news about what's going on in the community. This time they had dug a well for water, and of course they have a school and teaching people about AIDS, and of course they have church services as well. And in the most recent one they had just opened a new health clinic, so that was encouraging. And it's rewarding, and it's personal because you get to know this child, and once in a while we get a letter from her. A worker will translate a letter, and it's kind of neat to hear from her. So, Jesus spoke a lot about the poor. In Matthew 25, he said, "Whatever you do to the least of these, you do also to me." And we know that God loves a cheerful giver. Now, if you're not one who wants to make the commitment of sponsoring a child, there's other ways you can give as well. You can always give a one-time gift by just sending a check. But there's also, we get this catalog, which is filled with ways that you can help people. You can buy animals for them, which not only helps them now, but it helps them in their future to help them better themselves and be able to support themselves. And on this page we have specific things you can itemize it for. There's a sewing machine, a bicycle, or you can send a girl to school. Many girls around the world don't get to go to school. Or how about this one? Help sexually exploited girls. And this caption says, "She lied to me that I was going to a house to babysit. Instead, she sold me to a brothel." And they have a ministry to help sexually exploited girls. Or you could give toward digging a well so that there won't be any more walking to water, and it's clean water. Also, malaria is a bad problem in a lot of countries in Africa, and you can give toward, specify that you want to give toward mosquito netting, which would keep the mosquitoes off of the kids. That is how malaria is spread. Or a wheelchair or medicine for a clinic. And then on the last page they have these little handcrafted items that if you give toward a specific thing, a certain amount of money, they'll send you handcrafted items from that particular part of the world as a little token of their gratitude. There's also other ways to do it if you are creative about it. You can save money, think of ways to save money, or think of ways to raise money. I know most of you probably know that the average American spends more on coffee every month, or items like soda or cable TV, than it would take to sponsor a child each month. So there's a ways we can cut things out and make a sacrifice and save the money to donate. There's also ways, we get this magazine from them, and in it are a lot of encouraging articles, and one feature every month is how a family is coming up with creative ways to donate money. And this family has built a chicken coop, and they are selling eggs, and all the egg money goes to World Vision. And this is just a picture of some of the house conditions in many areas of the world. I think the chickens have it better, which is really sad. And this young lady, she's 20 years old. She went on a missions trip to Kenya, and she said watching village children as young as 7 or 8 struggling to collect river water from 4 miles away left her heartbroken. So she decided to come home and do something about it. She got some people to sponsor her, and she ran 2,460 miles across the country. And she raised $17,000, and she gave all of that to World Vision toward their well digging projects. Another neat thing in the magazine is they'll have articles about formerly sponsored children and what they're doing now. This young man, his name is Willie, and when he was 6, he says he struggled to walk 10 miles round trip to the closest school. And most of the time when he got home, there would be nothing to eat. And he says, being a sponsored child inspired me. This is where I got my passion. He now heads a ministry to help those that are hurt by AIDS. So that's an encouraging thing that a former sponsored child has done with his life. And then there's this young man who, he says that I would have remained illiterate if my parents were not encouraged by teachers to send me to the school when World Vision came to my village. And he is now teaching people in his community about better farming methods. And he's showing them how to have better crops so that they can better support their families. And if you have a concern about how World Vision uses their money, you can go online and read their financial reports. The counter argument that I hear from people is that aren't there enough people in our own country that are hurting, that need help? And to that I would say, yes, there are. And that's very true. And I would never discourage anyone from giving to people in our own country. I worked at a food pantry for 7 years. I've seen the need firsthand, and I know that there's a great need, and I don't want to discourage that. But the need in other countries, many other countries, is dire. People are dying from not having water and not having enough food or having inadequate shelter. And I think if we're creative, we can find ways to do both. World Vision was started when the Reverend Bob Pierce went on a missions trip to China, and there he met a teacher who showed him this abused and abandoned child that she had no money to take care of. And so he gave her his last $5, and he committed to her that he would send $5 every month from there on to help raise this child. And that gave him the idea, and within 3 years he had started a child sponsorship program, which has now grown to help families in over 100 countries around the world. So whichever need is on your heart, whether it's child sponsorship or well digging or whatever it might be, there is a branch most likely of World Vision to address that need. Well, I hope I have given you some things to think about and consider, and think about the true stories of walking for water and inadequate food and lack of shelter. And let's think of ways that we can be creative and think of ways that we can make a difference. I want to thank you again for coming, and you're perfectly welcome to look through any of this stuff, and I'll try to answer any questions that I can. So thanks again for your time and attention.